So yeah, just as Richie just mentioned, what I'm going to do here is explain a little bit of what what the industry actors told us in this hackathon, what were their needs, and the solution that we came up, or the MVP that we came up in order to kind of satisfy these solutions. So we had 24 hours to understand their different problems and trying to come up with a technical solution using Convector, which is the JavaScript framework built by World Cebu. A little bit about myself. I've been a web developer for the past 12 years or so. I got into Bitcoin around 2013, like right before the bubble, a couple of weeks before the bubble burst. I remember I jumped into Bitcoin because I wanted to understand how a digital asset or a digital coin that was not backed up by any state or by any government could have value, right? And all of a sudden, 3 years later, I somehow became a libertarian. After the bubble burst, I thought Bitcoin was dead, but I kept this widget on my cell phone, which indicates the price of Bitcoin. So I always, every day I could see it, the price. For some reason, I thought it wasn't going to go up anymore. But around 2015, I noticed it started to go up and up and up. And I remember I started saying everyone on every chat, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody followed my advice, not even myself. But then came 2017, and this was when the Bitcoin was not more the buzzword, but instead it was blockchain, right? So we had all these projects like Golem or Augur and Ripple. I don't know, all of these coins besides Litecoin and Bitcoin that were offering some sort of service, and it was in this year when I actually understood the potential with the underlying technology of Bitcoin, and I've been interested in it since then. This is the team that participated in the hackathon. We won the first place. It's funny because I originally I wasn't going to work with them. I actually was looking for a team, and I remember looking in Facebook, and there were some guys saying, "Hey, we need a third developer," and I said, "Okay, I can work with you." And the day of the hackathon, one of them never asked, and the second one just told me, "Me acabo de despertar y no sé dónde estoy." Y se salió del chat. And but good luck for me because I joined this great team of developers, and we could be part of this experience. Now the hackathon was a really nice experience because you could have in one single place a lot of different actors, each one with their own needs, right? So you have, for instance, Cafe, we had a representation of Miller or Beneficio, which was Pro Naranjo. We have people from the shipping companies, from aseguradoras, and also importadores and tostadoras de café. And they all could give you their insight of, they were all interested in blockchain, but in their own, according to their own industry, right? So for instance, for Cafe, they were more interested in the marca país approach of a blockchain. So Cafe sets the price of coffee, and if you want to export coffee from Costa Rica, you need to obey their rules and follow their price, the price that they set, and they set the price quite high in the global market. So Costa Rica needs to, or actually it differentiates from markets like Brazil with a better quality coffee, but also with a higher price, and somehow they need to keep innovating in order to justify these high prices other than the quality of the coffee. So they are interested in blockchain, and they are actually currently creating an application that implements a little bit of blockchain, but that's a different application. There were also some people interested in mercancy theft, for instance, the insurance companies or the shipping companies, because they say sometimes, I mean, they obviously had a lot of controls, but sometimes the coffee is supposed to be on the boat and it has been verified by 2 or 3 persons, and when it arrives to the other part of the world, there's just the stones in the sacks. So they were looking to use blockchain for mercancy theft. One of the other needs were, for instance, knowledge like the genetics of the plants. Like to know where a plant is coming from, or well, its genetic origins. And also a very interesting problem that could be solved with Bitcoin is creating an electronic bill of lading. And I believe I just read yesterday about IBM. I think it's my computer, maybe. So I remember this happening in the. Anyways, I will continue. The electronic, thank you. The electronic bill of lading, this represents like the contract between the person that is buying the coffee, the shipping company, and the person or the company that is exporting. So I just read yesterday a news about IBM creating this concept of electronic bill of lading that reduced the time of shipment paperwork from 5 to 7 days to just 1 hour, because of the trust and the transparency that can be leveraged with Bitcoin. So again, this was an interesting experience because all of the not only the technical knowledge, but the different industries knowledge that were there in a single place, and they were available to answer any questions that you could have. Now this is the flow that we came up with after hearing all these needs. This is the flow that we came up. I don't know if you can see it very well, but the boxes at the top, they are the lands, the producers of coffee. They take their coffee to their local branch of the miller, of the beneficio. So for instance, the beneficio can be several kilometers away from a land. So they have these local branches, and producers can just take their coffee to these local branches, and they will gather all the coffee and move it to the central beneficio, which in this case was Costa Rica. From there, the coffee is processed, and it is stored in these huge tanks called silos. And this was one of the conceptual challenges that we have, because obviously there all the coffee is mixed, so it is hard to say from which producer this coffee is coming if it's all mixed in these huge silos. From the silos, they can be there at least 1 month, but they can be up to 4 or 6 months, and they are then packaged into lots that are going to be transported to the muelle and then exported to another part of the world. So the challenge was, as I was saying, how to make these packages here know which producers produce the coffee that they contain, right? Because at this point here, everything is mixed up. So these were actually photos that we take after the event. We went and visited Costa Rica, and they do have different categories for coffee based on its quality, and this coffee doesn't get mixed. For instance, we have here a AAA coffee category, and we have Lomas de Naranjo, which is a higher quality coffee. And all the producers from AAA, for instance, I mean, the coffee of AAA is not mixed with this one, but the producers in this category, it can be, I don't know, 100 producers, right? And they all fill coffee in these huge tanks, and it takes weeks to fill one of these. And once they are filled, they close it for a month, and then they start taking out coffee. So how do you, the actual challenge was, how do we represent in data the lands? Because at the end, what the people wanted was to, the person in Japan that was buying the coffee, they should be able to see on a map, that was our goal, to see on a map the lands, the markers on each of the lands of the coffee they just bought, right? So how do we manage to do that when all the coffee is mixed in tanks of this size? So, in terms of the technical solution that we came up, we managed to conceptualize two types of models. One of it was the participants of the blockchain, and the other thing was the assets that are moving between one participant and the other. So we played with these two concepts. The participants were pretty much the actors that were there on the hackathon. So we have the producers, we have the miller, we have the shipping company, we have the cafe, and the importers and the toasters on the other side of the world. And the assets that are moving inside that blockchain are the input of coffee. That it's the actually it's this photo here when a producer gets to the miller and takes all their coffee, and that becomes an input of coffee. And the other asset that is moved on the blockchain is the lotte, which is the coffee that gets out of the miller to be exported. And one of the tricky challenges here as well is that the input of coffee is measured in something called fanegas, which is a volumetric unit of measurement. So what enters the miller is fanegas, this volumetric unit, but what goes out is kilograms. So this was also a complex problem that had us a couple of hours discussing that day. Now let me show you a small demo of what we did. It's not huge because we only had a little. We actually start coding. The first line of code we wrote it in around 11 o'clock at night, because the rest of the day we were discussing the problems and how we could implement a possible solution. This is a mock screen. It is not binding to any blockchain, but turns out that each of the beneficios, each of the millers, they have a group of people that goes and visits each of the coffee lands, and they obviously have their phones and access to internet in some places. So we thought of this screen that they could have, this application that they could have on their phone to register producers on the blockchain. So for instance, you could have Juan Rodriguez, which is email is juan@productor.com, their identification number, and grab, well, it's grabbing our current location, but grab the location of their land, and this is the information that is going to be consumed by the final buyer, right? They were very interested in giving, in introducing here information about the history and the family that produces the coffee, because the main idea here is to sell coffee. You could use traceability for health, like digamos, si hay una plaga, darse cuenta de dónde vino esa plaga, but you can also use it for marketing purposes, right? Because blockchain a trendy topic. Now, the actual application that it is binded to a blockchain in Hyperledger is this one here. So what I'm going to do is register coffee input. This is when the coffee owner gets to the beneficio and says, here I have X amount of fanegas that I want to sell to you. So from here, the beneficio could select the producer. Here we have two mockup users, but they are registered on the blockchain. The number of the invoice, we're going to say 5 by 5. Now the cantidad of fanegas, we're going to say it's 100. And this percentage of performance is, the idea here is how to convert fanegas to kilograms. And this is done with this input. They manage this porcentaje de rendimiento concept. And it's pretty much, the easier way to understand this is if this is 100%, then 5 fanegas are going to be 5 kilos. But it is not always 100%. Most of the time it can be 80 or 90%. So I'm gonna save this with these values. And as you can see here, let me see, we made a post to, I'm running a local server in Node.js, which received this request, and that server in Node.js communicate using Convector's framework, communicate with Hyperledger Fabric to actually save this piece of information on a blockchain. And you can see that because of these weird IDs. At this point, this coffee that was registered on blockchain doesn't have any category. It is not assigned to any of the silos. Each of the silos contains only one type or one category of coffee, right? So we're going to move this coffee. Let's say it is already processed and it is ready to go to a silo. So we're going to move it. So what I'm going to pick here is the Rainforest Alliance silo. It turns out this beneficio has one of these tanks, and it's exclusive for coffee that is has a Rainforest Alliance certification. They don't mix any other coffee in that silo. So it was previously uncategorized, and I'm going to move it to this silo. And as you can see, what it is doing here is also communicating with my local host, sending the data, and it was moved. Here that the category was changed, and you can see here Rainforest Alliance 555. Now, in terms of what we were able to do that night, because obviously there was the conceptual challenges, and there were also the technical challenges. Like at 11 o'clock, we were asking ourselves, are we really going to have something to show by tomorrow morning? But thanks to the easy way to use Convector, we were able to do at least this. I'm sure if we were using, if we were experienced already in Ethereum or EOS, I'm sure we could come up with something similar. But none of the people in that group had ever built a smart contract before. We were just web developers. So this is the demo that we came up that night. Right now it is more advanced, but I wanted to show you what we did, what we could do in just a couple of hours without sleep. Let me go back to the presentation. That was just in case I couldn't run the demo. Okay, so that's the way we managed to get the coffee registered on the blockchain. But how do we sell that coffee, right? So one of the problems, or the main problem was this. Let's say I have 60 quintales of coffee, of of AAA coffee, and I have them all mixed in this huge tank. Let's assume that 20 of those 60 quintales is from one piece of land, and the other 40 come from this other piece of land. And then suddenly, I got a call from Japan saying that they want to buy 30 quintales. So in terms of the system, where do I subtract these quintales, or what will the system show this client? Do we want to show them only the information from this finca dos, or do we want to show them all the lands that are in that silo? Because right here it's only two, to make it a simple example, but these huge silos can contain dozens of product owners. So this, the solution that we proposed in theory, because we didn't have time to actually implement it, was to each of the lots, which are the package that is going to be exported, it's going to have an array and a representation of a percentual representation of the coffee that comes from each of the lands. So for the example, from the previous example, Finca Uno would have 30% of the coffee, while Finca Dos would have 62%. So what does this mean in an actual software development application? It means that we can convert an ID that is printed on the sack into Google Map with different markers indicating where are the lands of the coffee that you're buying, and how much coffee you could potentially have on that sack, because it's impossible to determine exactly which lands that coffee is coming from, right? Because it's all mixed. So what we do is we show a percentual representation of the coffee that you could have on that sack. Yeah, let me show you a little bit of. I still have some time. Yes. Okay. So let me show you a little bit of code. It's not a lot. I just wanted to show you how easy it can be to get started with Convector. So this function that we're seeing here it's just plain JavaScript. It's a Node.js server that receives the request. This is the request to assign a category to coffee input. So what we do is we take the ID from the URL and the category that comes in the request. Now there is some magic happening here with Convector, and the easiest way to understand here is that there is a controller in the server, but there's also a JavaScript controller for the chain code that Walter mentioned a while ago, which are the controller on the chain code can be thought as the actual smart contract that implements the logic on the blockchain. And what Convector does great is it binds these two files, so you could invoke from the server file the function that will actually modify the blockchain. We don't have to code that. So this initialization, what it's doing is making available the smart contract in my server, and then from there I can call functions like assign category, which is a function that we wrote, and let me show you how it looks. Assign category, well, actually let me go up in this file. So this is the controller, this is the smart contract written in TypeScript with Convector. So as you can see, it's a simple JavaScript class, but here it has a decorator, a Convector decorator, saying it's a controller, and it uses a name which is Café. Now, all the public functions inside this class, they can be decorated with the invocable decorator, and what this does is it makes them available to be invoked from the server, and it means they're going to modify data within the blockchain. Now the function that I was showing you was this assign category. So it receives the ID of the coffee input and the new category. I don't remember what modified was, if it was the person of the date. But what we do here is we instantiate this cafe with the ID, and what it's doing here is it's pulling the data from the actual blockchain. So get1 is a function that is available through Convector. So just as you would use, I don't know if you're familiar, for instance, with Laravel or Ruby on Rails or any of these MVC frameworks, that they give you functions like save, delete, find one, find all. So Convector does the same thing, but to communicate with this data layer in Hyperledger. So Cafe is obviously a model that we map here. So a Cafe is also a JavaScript class, and we define its properties. For instance, let me see, category here must be string, and there are some properties like owner or product ID that need to be required. And again, this is all from Convector syntax. And by defining this model, it makes it available here in this controller. And with the function get1 and providing the ID, I am able to instantiate and pull the data from the blockchain and have it here ready to manipulate. Now that we have this coffee instance, we can make sure that the person trying to modify this instance of a class, the owner is the same as the sender, the people trying to modify it, right? Otherwise we would throw an error, but if everything looks good, we would just assign the new category and assign the modified by and the modified date. And then again, this .save function is something that is provided by Convector, and you as a JavaScript developer don't need to think how this is going to be saved in the blockchain. There is a little bit of learning curve setting up the project initially, but once you do that, you have all these functions available to move data up and down from these blockchain data layers. So just as easy as Cafe.save, you can be sure that it is stored in Hyperledger. There is a CouchDB data layer to retrieve the data faster. But then again, this is all agnostic to the developer. So that's why we were able to come up with a tangible solution, even though it's quite small. But the only reason we were able to come up with this solution in just a couple of hours at night was because this framework was very easy to grasp if you already know JavaScript. And I think that's what I had for you today. I don't know if you have any questions.